My name is Trevor Caldwell.
I'm 29, married to a woman named Laura for just under 3 months, though we've been together for nearly 4 years.
Most of our short marriage, I've been stationed overseas, working contract security in northern Italy.
Long hours, long nights, but I told myself I was doing it for us, for our future. She stayed behind in a quiet little town outside Austin, Texas, working at a small architectural firm. Only 6 employees total, and she was the only woman. I remember how proud she was when she got the job, how she laughed about being one of the guys, how she joked about having 5 work husbands. It used to make me smile. Now I lie awake wondering if one of them tucked her in while I was 6,000 miles away. The man she talked about most often was her boss, Alan.
Alan this, Alan that. Alan said I have a good eye for mid-century design. Alan thinks I should consider getting my license.
I told myself it was harmless. Hell, she called him her office dad. A 58-year-old widower with a silver ponytail and a tendency to overshare about his vintage motorcycle collection.
I didn't see the threat.
She turned down a fully remote job that paid $12,000 more.
Said she liked the vibe at Alan's firm. Said she didn't want to work in isolation, that her mental health was better with people around. I believed her. Now I can't stop wondering if what she needed was something else entirely.
The signs were so small I nearly missed them.
She got oddly defensive whenever I joked about Alan.
She started replying to my messages later and later in the day, even though she always had her phone on her. When we FaceTimed, she always took the call from the guest room, never from the living room anymore, said the light was better.
I trusted her.
That trust cracked 2 weeks ago. I was scrolling through Instagram in a rare moment of downtime and saw Alan's name in a story Laura had shared.
Harmless enough, until I tapped into his profile. The man had a public account.
That was his first mistake.
Buried between dog photos and woodworking projects were a handful of stories that made my stomach drop. One featured a shirtless Alan in what looked like his office, captioned, "Late night plans, anyone?" Another showed a close-up of his hand gripping someone's thigh. The text read, "Still got it." The timestamps were from months back. Laura had replied to one of his posts. A funny meme about coffee addiction. She replied with a laughing emoji. It felt like a tiny betrayal. But it wouldn't be the last. I went digging.
Opened a private browser. Checked her other socials.
Snapchat.
She still had him added. I scrolled further.
And then I saw them.
Alan had been sending her suggestive stories for months. Some were explicit jokes about massages turning into more, not-so-subtle comments about her tight pencil skirts.
He once posted a boomerang of a tongue motion with the words, "If only HR could see me now." She never reacted.
But she never blocked him, either.
I called her that night. I asked straight up, "Has Alan ever made you uncomfortable?" She paused. Then said, "Not really." And with that one answer, everything shifted. Not because of what she said, but because of what she didn't. I had the first piece of the puzzle. But I didn't know the picture yet. I flew back the next week under the pretense of an early leave. She met me at the airport with a sign that said, "Welcome home, my hero," like we were still in a romantic comedy instead of the opening act of a courtroom drama. When I brought up Alan again, she played dumb. "Oh, he's harmless," she said. "Just a flirty old man." Flirty old man? That felt like describing a shark as a curious fish. I didn't tell her what I'd seen yet. I just asked, "Why didn't you tell me about the messages?" That was when she flinched. A full-body pause, like she was deciding between lies. She said she hadn't seen them. Then said she had, but ignored them. Then said she was scared to lose her job. "But you left a better job to work there," I said. "One that paid more. One you could do from anywhere." Silence. And silence, when you're married, is never quiet. It's the loudest scream in the room. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, watching her back rise and fall, wondering if I was sleeping next to a stranger, or worse, someone who just didn't care. I thought about the version of her who stayed up late editing her portfolio, who'd cry when I sent her flowers, who once mailed me a keychain that said, "Come home safe or I'm flying out to slap you." I wanted to believe that version of her still existed. But my gut was starting to tell me I was loving a ghost.
At 3:47 a.m., I got up and stood in the kitchen drinking tap water like it was whiskey. That's when it hit me, the way she said Alan never made her uncomfortable wasn't a denial.
It was an admission. She was comfortable. Too comfortable. I stared at my reflection in the microwave door.
The man staring back had aged 10 years in 10 days.
Bags under my eyes. Hair unkempt. Eyes hollow.
I was a man who'd spent months fighting pirates on foreign docks, only to come home and realize the real ambush had been happening in my own living room. And that was the moment right there, in a t-shirt that still smelled like jet fuel and regret, that I started planning. I'd spent the past few years in danger zones, trusting my instincts to keep me alive. I figured they deserved the same respect now.
She was hiding something. And I was going to find out what. I started with the basics. Her phone.
When Laura fell asleep beside me, I slipped out of bed and sat in the hallway with my back against the linen closet. I wasn't proud of it, but pride hadn't been keeping this marriage together, paranoia had.
Her passcode was still the same, 0823. Her birthday. For someone so guarded, she could be surprisingly lazy. Nothing jumped out at first.
Her texts were clean.
Suspiciously so. No messages from Alan, none from any coworkers. Either she deleted them, or she wasn't using iMessage for the dirt. That's when I found the folder. Tucked into her photo gallery was a hidden album. Harmless name, For Work.
I opened it expecting floor plans, CAD screenshots, color swatches.
Instead, I found 4 selfies of her in the office bathroom. Different outfits. Same angle. Slight smirk.
One taken with a plunging neckline she never wore in public, let alone to a job where everyone else was a man twice her age. Then the bomb, a screen grab of an Instagram story reply.
Alan had written, "Now that's a sight I'd love to come back from lunch to," followed by a winking emoji. Her response? A blushing face.
She wasn't just ignoring him.
She was playing along.
I sat there for an hour, phone in hand, feeling like I'd been shoved off a building made entirely of trust. After getting official approval for leave from the security firm, citing a vague family emergency that raised no alarms, I booked the earliest flight home. I arrived on a Thursday night, cabing from the airport to our quiet little house just past midnight.
The street was empty, still lit by flickering porch lamps. I didn't call.
I didn't want her to clean anything up, not the house, not the story.
When I opened the front door with my key, everything felt too still.
Like a stage set before the actors walk in.
No TV murmuring in the background. No hum of the dishwasher. Just the kind of silence that makes your skin prickle. She wasn't in bed. At first, I thought she wasn't home.
Then I heard the shower shut off, and a moment later, footsteps down the hall.
Trevor?
She appeared in the doorway of the hall bathroom, wrapped in a towel, steam curling around her like a shroud. Her face was flushed with surprise or guilt.
"You're home?" she asked.
"Surprise," I said, my voice dry as bone. She stepped in for a hug, and I let her.
But I didn't kiss her. I couldn't. Not until I knew.
I requested a short leave from the security firm under the pretext of handling a family matter, something they didn't question too deeply since I'd barely used my leave for the entire year. It gave me just enough time to return to Texas and see things for myself, to breathe the same air my wife was breathing while all of this, whatever it was, unfolded. The next morning, I played dumb.
"Want me to drive you to work?"
I asked, sipping coffee I could barely swallow.
She hesitated. "You sure? Thought you had errands." I smiled. "Nothing urgent."
She said yes, and that ride turned into a reconnaissance mission. Her firm was in a converted 2-story house near downtown. From the outside, it looked cozy, inviting, like something out of an HGTV special.
Inside? Who knew?
After dropping her off, I circled the block, parked across the street, and watched.
10 minutes later, Alan pulled up in a blue Jag. His window rolled down. Laura walked out to greet him. He didn't just wave.
He leaned out, brushed something from her cheek.
She laughed. That laugh. The one I used to get when I made her breakfast in bed. Now it was his.
I sat in that truck until my knuckles turned white against the steering wheel. Then I drove to the only person who might tell me the truth, Candace.
Candace was Laura's co-worker.
The one who quit last month and moved to San Antonio. They'd gone to design school together. When she left, Laura said, Candace just wasn't a team player.
That always felt like projection. I found her Instagram and messaged her. Just a simple question, hey, it's Trevor. Could we talk? It's about Laura. She replied in 5 minutes. 30 minutes later, we were sitting at a Starbucks off I-35. Candace didn't waste time.
I didn't want to be the one to tell you, she said, wrapping both hands around her drink.
But since you asked, I think you already know.
She told me about the late nights at the office, the private lunches. How Laura always stayed behind after everyone left, claiming she was doing catch-up work.
How Alan once brought in a bouquet of wildflowers and said they were for the woman who keeps the office bright. I asked, did you ever see anything? She shook her head. Not exactly. But it always felt off. Like watching a magician, nothing you can point to, but something you know is a trick.
Before we left, she added, Trevor, whatever you decide to do, don't gaslight yourself.
If your gut says something's wrong, it probably is. Driving back, I thought about that. For years I trusted my gut to keep me alive in chaotic war zones.
But in the comfort of my own marriage, I kept convincing it to shut up.
No more.
That night, Laura walked in the door like nothing had changed. She kissed me on the cheek, kicked off her shoes, and started talking about the office HVAC breaking down. All I could hear was Candace's voice, don't gaslight yourself. I excused myself, said I had to run to the hardware store. Instead, I drove to a Best Buy and bought a simple voice-activated recorder. That, and a $19 motion sensor nanny cam hidden inside a desk clock. I was going to catch whatever this was. Because if I didn't, I knew what I'd catch instead. A lifetime of pretending. The camera arrived the next morning, and I spent a full hour setting it up in the corner of the home office. Hidden in a cheap-looking desk clock, it had a direct view of the living room and a partial angle on the kitchen. I placed the voice recorder under the couch cushions and tested both devices 3 times until I was sure they were running. Paranoia doesn't wear a watch, it works around the clock. And then the universe decided I wasn't paranoid enough. That afternoon, Laura walked in with someone behind her. I was in the kitchen, half prepping dinner, half watching the audio levels on my laptop screen.
Guess who's visiting for the weekend, she chirped.
I turned around slowly, spatula in hand, and my stomach dropped. Trevor, came the unmistakable voice of Karen, her mother.
Laura's mother was the human equivalent of a smoke alarm with no off switch.
High-strung, overly polite in the way that made your ears bleed, and loaded with questions that made every family gathering feel like a job interview you were failing. Karen, I said with the warmth of a man greeting an IRS auditor.
Didn't know you were coming. Laura invited me. Last minute. Isn't that fun, she beamed. I figured we could all have some quality time. And I brought photos of my new quilting projects. I glanced at Laura. She was biting her lip, suppressing a smile. Like she'd tossed a grenade into the room and wanted to see how long it'd take me to jump on it. Dinner was a disaster. Karen wanted to know why we didn't have children yet. Whether I was still gallivanting across Europe with guns and gadgets. Whether I had a 5-year plan. She said it in that overly sweet, sing-song voice that always felt like it came with a side of judgment, like she was building up to a compliment but decided halfway through to file your soul down instead. Later that evening, while Karen was giving Laura a foot rub and watching reruns of Antiques Roadshow, I snuck into the office and checked the footage. So far, nothing suspicious unless you count me muttering curses under my breath as I tried to act like a normal husband with a ticking time bomb in the guest room. But then, Friday morning. Laura left for work early. Karen went out to walk the neighborhood and collect gossip. I was alone. I reviewed the footage from the night before, and finally, something popped. Around 2 a.m., after I'd gone to bed, Laura had come back into the living room. She was on the phone, whispering. I can't talk long, my mom's asleep and Trevor's upstairs. A pause. No, he has no idea. He still thinks it's just Alan being creepy. Another pause. A laugh. Well, maybe I like creepy. The call ended with a smile on her face. And just like that, the rabbit hole cracked open. Not only was she lying to me, she was lying to someone else, too. Karen returned later, babbling about someone's lawn gnome being stolen. I nodded, distracted,
my mind chasing that half-heard conversation.
Because suddenly Alan might not be the biggest problem. There is something humiliating about trying to be invisible in your own home.
Like a man tiptoeing around his own living room, afraid that the furniture might condemn him.
That Friday evening, I decided I wasn't going to watch anymore.
Whatever Laura was hiding, it was time to bring it out into the open even if she screamed and kicked.
The moment came after dinner, when Karen was chatting about how she once met Martha Stewart in an elevator. I'm pretty sure it was just a cardboard cutout at a fair. Laura excused herself and went to wash the dishes. I followed her. I didn't say anything right away. I just leaned against the counter with my arms crossed and let the silence stretch out long enough for her to turn around.
"What?" she asked, not looking up from the sink.
"Were you on the phone last night?" I asked casually.
Casually, like a man trying to bluff with two clubs.
She froze. Barely perceptible, but I saw it. A tremor in her shoulder.
A pause before she picked up the next plate.
"It was just Candace," she said. "Interesting. You know what's even more interesting?" I said, my voice cracking like glass. "Candace lives in San Antonio and hasn't spoken to you since she left the firm."
"You said she was toxic.
Remember?" Laura finally turned around, soap suds hanging from her wrists. "Why are you interrogating me?" "Because I'm tired of living in a damn play I didn't sign up for."
That made her angry. She slammed the plate into the sink.
"You're acting crazy. You're following me around like some jealous ex-boyfriend with a podcast." I laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was too real. "Yeah, well, you know what?
Insanity is cheaper than therapy, and that jealous ex-boyfriend is still paying the mortgage."
At that moment, Karen appeared in the doorway, sipping chamomile tea.
"Everything okay in here?" she asked. "Everything's fine, Mom," Laura said, clenching her teeth.
I forced myself to smile. Just learning not to be a dork in real life.
Karen lingered awkwardly, then backed out with the speed of a woman who had just walked into a colonoscopy.
Laura stormed upstairs. I followed her.
Probably shouldn't have, but I was already deep in this stupid forest of confrontation, so I might as well hug a tree.
"I heard you call," I said from the doorway as she sat on her bed, flipping through her phone with surgical indifference. She didn't look up. "So what? Are you spying on me now?"
"No, I was hoping you'd tell me the truth yourself.
But I guess that right expired 3 months after we said I do."
She slammed her phone down.
"It's fine, Trevor. You're making this up. Can't I even have a private phone call?" "Of course you can," I said.
"But next time, don't call a guy who isn't your boss and whisper about how much you love creepy people."
She opened her mouth but didn't say anything. "And me?" I went into the bathroom and looked at myself in the mirror. Who was I trying to save? My marriage? My pride? My alter ego? Some imaginary version of us that never existed except in a few anniversary photos and passive-aggressive Christmas cards? I looked like a man falling apart.
My hair was disheveled, my eyes were red, and I was wearing the same thin shirt I had slept in bunkers on the other side of the world.
The irony of the situation did not escape me. Once, I dodged bullets. Now, I was dodging the truth in my own damn hallway. But I wasn't dodging anymore. The next morning was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that makes you nervous because you know it's just the calm before the storm.
Karen went to her friend's antique shop for the day, thank God, leaving Laura and me alone in the kitchen, filled with unspoken words and air you could cut with a knife.
She made coffee. I made toast. We danced around each other like colleagues who had once been together and now regretted every word. "Do you want to talk?" I asked. She didn't even look up. "No, not really." That was it. She didn't even pretend.
I could have dealt with anger, denial, even crocodile tears.
But indifference? It was a real blow.
I leaned on the counter, biting into burnt toast as if it owed me rent.
"You know, I thought coming home would solve all our problems. I thought that maybe seeing me again would change something in you. I guess I misjudged the glue that holds us together." Laura exhaled. Not a sigh. A refusal. "You think I don't see what you're doing?" she snapped. "Following me. Setting traps.
Acting like you're some kind of detective in your own marriage.
I raised an eyebrow.
Well, I did catch the suspect whispering sweet nothings to a mysterious man while her mother was snoring in the next room, so maybe being a detective isn't the worst job I've ever had. She finally turned around, glaring at me. I'm tired, Trevor. I'm tired of being watched. Of walking on eggshells in my own home.
Great, I said, pointing at the floor. Then stop laying eggs.
I'm barefoot and I'm bleeding.
We stood there in silence.
I held my coffee cup as if it held the answers, and she stared at the refrigerator as if it could tell her how to feel. I'm not a villain, she muttered.
No, I said.
You're just a person who invited a villain to sit in my chair and wear my t-shirt. She flinched.
Not much. But it was enough. I didn't want an argument. I wanted the truth.
A straight answer, even if it tore something inside her. But she responded with silence. The same silence I heard before a shootout, when the world holds its breath because it knows the bullets are coming.
So I made my move. I'm leaving. Laura blinked. What? I'm leaving. This weekend. I'll stay with a friend from the unit. You want time and space? You'll get it.
She opened her mouth, then closed it. As if she was looking for a script, but someone had stolen the last page.
And me? I felt relieved. Not joy. Not revenge. Just relief.
Like I had finally shed a weight I didn't know I had been carrying since our wedding vows.
That day, I packed my things. No drama. No scenes.
Just me in a bag, which I filled with the things I hadn't yet buried in my soul.
As I zipped up the bag, Laura stood in the doorway. Do you really think this will solve anything? She asked. No, I replied.
But it will stop me from destroying myself even more by trying not to be jealous of your boss, so it's better this way.
The first night away from home felt like I was in a vacuum. There was no familiar humming from the refrigerator.
There were no half-asleep sounds from the other side of the bed. Just me, a mattress in Eric's guest room, and a silence so profound that it felt like the walls were whispering about my failures. Eric, a veteran colleague, former Marine, and the closest person I had ever known, greeted me with a beer, an understanding nod, and a spare key.
Long stay? He asked.
I don't know, I replied, sitting down on his old couch as if it were a confessional. Long enough to remember who I was before I became a hidden camera idiot with a broken heart.
Eric didn't judge me. He just handed me the remote and said, ESPN is on.
Misery loves company, and bad football loves it even more.
The next few days were a blur.
I trained obsessively, doing push-ups until my shoulders trembled. I ate protein bars and drank coffee as if I were preparing for another deployment.
Anything to keep my hands busy and my mind quiet. But grief? Grief has a key to every room in your mind.
You can lock the front door, but it will still creep in through the ventilation holes.
Then the phone rang. It was Laura's sister, Melanie. I almost didn't answer. But something told me to pick up.
Trevor, she said, her voice already trembling, you have to come to the hospital.
Hospital. That word, spoken without context, hits you like a shotgun blast. It's Karen, she said. She had a heart attack this morning. My mind spun. Karen.
A strict woman who was always critical, drove me crazy, and asked too many questions. She was also Laura's mother. I raced to Austin General Hospital, adrenaline blocking all other sensations.
Not because I wanted to see Karen. Because I needed to see Laura. I saw her in the waiting room. Pale. Her makeup was smeared.
Her fingers clenched a paper cup as if it were keeping her upright. When she saw me, she didn't say a word. She just stood up and threw herself into my arms.
I froze for a moment.
Then I hugged her. Because even after everything she had done, even after all the evil she had done, I still knew what a person in need of support looked like. And in that moment, we were just two people looking at the woman who had raised her, fighting for her life.
She asked about you, Laura whispered. She said you knew what to do. I didn't know. But I nodded anyway. Karen survived. The doctors said she was going to be okay.
She would need to be monitored, but she would recover.
I stayed. For a while. By her bedside.
In that dreary hospital room where time stood still. Laura sat across from me, exhausted.
Devastated. "Do you think this will change anything?" she asked quietly. I wanted to say yes. Or no, or something wise and final. But all I said was, "I think it reminds us that time is running out for all of us. Even for apologies." She turned away. When I finally left the hospital that night, I didn't go back to Eric.
I drove to the hill outside town where we used to park and talk in the early years.
When everything was still honest. When I still believed we were building something real.
I sat on the hood of my pickup truck, looked up at the stars, and asked myself the question I'd been avoiding for weeks.
Do I still love her? And if so, is that enough? The answer didn't come that night. But the next chapter did.
When you've spent months chasing ghosts in your marriage, the real horror isn't what you find, it's what's been staring back at you the whole time.
And sometimes, that face? It's yours.
It was the following Saturday when Laura called.
Not texted, called. That alone was enough to get me to pick up. "You free for lunch?" I paused. "You want to talk?" She sighed. "Let's just call it a ceasefire. Neutral ground. We met at a Tex-Mex place we used to love before everything went sideways."
I showed up in a clean shirt. She wore the same denim jacket I bought her on our 3rd anniversary.
The irony didn't land gently. We sat. We ordered.
Silence took the first course. Then she leaned in, pushing her fork through a pile of rice like she was dissecting a marriage with stainless steel.
"I know I lied," she said. "I know I broke things. I never thought you'd come back early." "That's the thing about consequences," I said. "They don't RSVP." She looked away. "I didn't mean for it to be. Alan was just attention. I liked feeling seen."
"You were seen," I snapped.
"You just didn't like the view."
Our waiter dropped off the check like he was defusing a bomb.
Laura's voice dropped. "I never slept with him." "That almost makes it worse," I said. "You handed him the idea and let me pay for it." Then I laughed. Out loud. It was too absurd not to. "I put a spy cam in a clock, Laura." A clock. I'd become the kind of man I used to warn myself about. I should have been nominated for an Emmy or institutionalized, maybe both. And then, miraculously, she laughed too. Just a small, broken chuckle. But it cracked the air. "You were always dramatic," she said. "I used to be romantic," I said. "But look where that got me, divorcing a woman who flirts like she's collecting frequent flyer miles." "Hey," she said. "At least I didn't fake my own death to escape a bad date." And that's when I realized something weird. We were still us, in some mangled, shattered way. Two idiots lobbing sarcasm across a battlefield of betrayal. Still funny. Still broken. Still familiar. The check sat there. Untouched. Laura picked it up. "I'll get this." I raised an eyebrow. "Guilt special?" "No," she said. "Hope appetizer." That night, she came over. Not for anything romantic. Not even to talk. We watched a movie on my laptop. Some dumb indie comedy neither of us really followed. But halfway through, I looked over and she was asleep, head on my shoulder. For a second, it felt like the past. Then my phone buzzed. An email. Subject line, inquiry, your post got our attention. It was from a literary agent. Apparently, someone at the coffee shop had read one of my short posts about this mess on a community board. She wanted to talk. A book. About all of it. And just like that, a crack of joy cut through the haze. Maybe the story wasn't over. Not the marriage. Not the pain. Not the man I used to be. There's a saying from Nietzsche that's been circling in my head like a vulture. "I'm not upset that you lied to me, I'm upset that from now on I can't believe you." That line, it stings. Because that's what betrayal is, really not a wound, but a shift. A tilting of gravity where up is down and love starts sounding like background noise. But here's another quote that found its way to me, one I scribbled on a napkin during a low moment at Eric's: "Forgiveness doesn't excuse their behavior.
Forgiveness prevents their behavior from destroying your heart.
I didn't know who said it. Still don't.
But it hit like truth.
The agent call turned into a meeting. The meeting turned into a deal. Not big money, don't get excited.
But enough to make me think maybe I hadn't gone through all this for nothing.
I told Laura. She smiled, said, "That's poetic, don't you think?"
You turned heartbreak into hardcover.
And for once, she wasn't sarcastic.
We started meeting twice a week.
Not dates, just neutral territory talks.
Walks, diner breakfasts, one afternoon at the dog shelter because she said she needed something in her life that wouldn't lie.
We adopted a one-eyed mutt named Brisket.
He smells like wet couch and barks at ceiling fans, but he's ours. And when Laura laughed, really laughed, watching him chase his own tail, I felt something settle in my chest.
Look, I'm not saying we're rebuilding. Not yet.
But we're walking through the wreckage together, and sometimes, that's more honest than pretending it never fell apart.
As for my own sins, I made mistakes.
Not just the spying or the paranoia or the dramatic monologues I delivered in the bathroom mirror.
I forgot to show up emotionally. I got so good at being the provider, I stopped being a partner. I mistook duty for connection. I thought coming home with money and groceries meant I was loving her. Turns out, love speaks in smaller currencies. Was she wrong? Yes. Was I blameless? Not even close.
In war, you learn that the fight never goes clean.
Everyone's got shrapnel.
The only question is whether you treat the wounds or let them rot.
Now we talk like people again. Now I sleep in my own bed again, alone, but not lonely.
And Brisket sleeps at the foot like a weird, snoring metaphor. I still don't know where we're headed.
But I know we're not where we were. And maybe that's enough for now. We didn't make up like they do in the movies. There was no running through the rain to the airport, no dramatic confessions, no orchestral music playing during the kiss. There was only time, choice, and a few cups of bitter coffee that we drank without saying a word. But that's the cool thing about healing, it doesn't knock on your door.
It comes quietly, like forgiveness in old shoes.
One morning, I woke up to a message from Laura. No hearts. No, I miss you.
Just a photo of Brisket tangled in the sheets with the caption, "He misses your snoring."
I laughed. And then I cried.
Because sometimes joy doesn't shout, it whispers. And if you've been hurting for a long time, even a whisper can shake the walls.
We never went back to the way things were. We couldn't. We both knew it.
But we built something new, something smaller, more honest.
We went to therapy. First separately, then together. We talked about what we hadn't said. About the deep wounds we had hidden in denial. Somewhere in that chaos, we found two people who still wanted to try. The book came out 8 months later. It didn't make me rich, but I was proud of it.
And when I saw Laura in the front row at the launch, applauding as if I had just walked on the moon, I realized that some victories come after the battle is over.
Here's my wish for you, who have made it this far. Don't ignore your intuition. Don't sell yourself short for the sake of maintaining a fragile peace.
And don't make my mistake of confusing necessity with love.
Love is joy and lightness. Forgiveness is ugliness. And trust?
Trust is a house you build brick by brick, barefoot, in the rain.
But it is possible. So be honest. With them, with yourself.
And if you find yourself standing amid the ruins, look around, you may find someone else who is also willing to pick up the pieces.
And if not? You will learn that you can carry your damn bricks on your own. That's what I did. And that's why I'm still standing. Thank you very much for watching, friends. If you liked the story, please like and subscribe, it's very important to me right now. I'll be very happy if you do. New videos every day.